California fraud questions intensify as FBI reviews multi-billion-dollar funding irregularities. Federal investigators examine alleged misuse of public funds. Federal investigators are now rummaging through California's checkbook after billions in public money apparently went on a magical disappearing act. The mess centers on rushed, sloppy, just trust us spending sprees where cash was sprayed out at record speed and oversight showed up late, confused and empty-handed. No charges have landed on Governor Gavin Newsom yet, but the situation has turned into a full-blown accountability scavenger hunt, with auditors, investigators, and taxpayers all asking the same question. Who was minding the store while the money walked out the door? What the $10 billion figure refers to. The dollar amount frequently cited in media and online discussions refers to combined totals from multiple California programs that were flagged by auditors, inspectors general, and federal prosecutors for fraud risk, improper payments, or weak controls. These include pandemic-era relief funds, homelessness initiatives, and food assistance programs. Investigators are focusing on whether safeguards were ignored or bypassed, allowing organized fraud networks to exploit the system. The 10 billion number people repeat is usually not one single clean line item in California's budget. It's a shorthand that gets used in a few different ways depending on who is talking. One of the clearest official figures close to that amount comes from the California State Auditor's review of the State Employment Development Department, EDD, which reported about $10.4 billion in unemployment benefits that were likely improperly paid during the pandemic, and warned the real total could be higher because some suspicious claims were still under review. In other discussions, the around 10 billion talking point is created by bundling multiple audit and law enforcement concerns across programs like weak controls or fraud risk in homelessness funding. For example, a federal audit flagged hundreds of millions in homelessness funds as at risk due to oversight gaps, and other safety net spending, where investigators look for organized schemes that exploit identity checks, eligibility rules, and payment systems. And sometimes the figure is mixed with federal program allegations tied to California recipients, such as the Small Business Administration's February 6, 2026 announcement that it suspended over 111,000 California borrowers tied to about $8.6 billion in suspected pandemic-era small business loan fraud, though those loans were federal programs, not state-run. Governor Gavin Newsom has not been charged in connection with California fraud cases, and his office has pushed back publicly against claims that he personally profited or directed wrongdoing, often arguing that the fraud was carried out by outside criminals exploiting stress systems during the pandemic and other large spending efforts. In recent debates, Newsom has also pointed out that some of the biggest dollar figures being cited involve federal programs like PPP and ADL loans that were run by the federal government, not Sacramento. At the same time, official audits have documented major control failures in state-administered programs, most famously the state auditor's finding that California's EDD waited months to strengthen fraud detection during COVID-era unemployment surges, contributing to roughly $10.4 billion in payments tied to identity issues and likely fraud, which fueled public anger and ongoing criticism about oversight. The political response has been split. Newsom has described some attacks as politically driven, while also acknowledging fraud is real and something the state has to keep fighting. And critics argue that leadership and management failures help create an environment where large-scale fraud could spread and go undetected longer than it should have. When the FBI gets involved in a fraud review tied to public programs, it usually means federal authorities are treating the issue as a serious financial crime question, not just a paperwork problem. The FBI and partner agencies can subpoena bank records, pull payment data, review emails and contracts, interview witnesses, and trace where money actually went, steps that help prosecutors decide whether the evidence supports criminal charges or only shows mismanagement. For example, in Southern California, homelessness-related cases, federal prosecutors have publicly described task forces where the FBI works alongside HUD's Inspector General and IRS criminal investigation to investigate alleged theft and fraud involving homeless services funding, and recent federal cases have targeted nonprofit leaders and operators accused of siphoning public money rather than delivering services. In California's pandemic-era unemployment fraud cases, federal indictments have often focused on identity theft rings and intermediaries who filed or facilitated fake claims against the state's EDD system, which is consistent with the broader pattern that investigators frequently charge the people who executed the schemes: contractors, nonprofit executives, recruiters, and middlemen, instead of automatically charging elected officials. Just as important, an FBI review does not guarantee charges are imminent. It can end with no charges, civil recovery actions, or narrower prosecutions depending on what the evidence shows about whether the fraud was isolated or whether weak controls and repeated warning signs allowed it to become widespread. This story is getting national attention because it connects to a wider problem that hit many states and federal agencies during COVID and other emergencies. Huge amounts of money were pushed out fast to help people, but the speed and scale made it easier for criminals to cheat the system before strong safeguards were in place. In California, state auditors reported major weaknesses in EDD's fraud controls during the pandemic and tied them to about $10.4 billion in likely improper unemployment payments, which became a headline example of what can go wrong when identity checks and verification tools lag behind demand. At the federal level, oversight groups have reported large nationwide fraud risks in major relief programs. PRAC has said data analytics suggests tens of billions of dollars in potential fraud tied to questionable Social Security numbers. And GAO has warned that organized fraud groups exploited public programs and that total pandemic relief fraud losses have been estimated in the hundreds of billions. Because these problems affected both state and federal programs, analysts across the political spectrum keep coming back to the same hard lesson. It is difficult to deliver aid quickly without opening doors to improper payments unless strong front-end controls and real-time monitoring are built in from the start. California hit the gas, threw oversight out the window, and then acted shocked when billions vanished like socks in a dryer. Emergency spending turned into a money confetti cannon, criminals lined up with buckets, and the adults in charge showed up late asking, "Wait, was that important?" The now famous $10 billion isn't one neat theft. It's a Franken number stitched together from pandemic, unemployment disasters, homelessness programs with holes big enough to drive a bus through, food aid leaks, and federally run loan programs that California residents helped drain. Enter the feds. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is combing through records, bank trails, and emails to figure out whether this was a few bad actors gaming the system or a full-blown institutional faceplant. No charges have landed on Gavin Newsom, who insists outside criminals exploited stressed systems and reminds everyone that some of the mess came from federal programs, not Sacramento. Critics respond with the obvious question: if leadership wasn't responsible, who exactly left the vault open with a "please take one" sign taped to the door? That's why this story went national, because it perfectly captures the modern government paradox. Move fast, spend faster, skip the controls, and then act stunned when the bill comes due and taxpayers are left holding the receipt. This was brought to you by The Brutal Truth.